Please welcome Mike Horton, founder and CEO at Geonet.
My name is Mike Horton, and I'm the project creator and CEO of Geonet. And Geonet is a spatial intelligence platform for physical AI. And I'm really looking forward to telling you a bit about how physical AI is going to be probably the largest market ever created and revolutionize our world, and how it's a super important part of the future of our national security. But before I get into that, I want to do a quick introduction into what Geonet is and a bit on my personal background. So I am an engineer. I went to UC Berkeley, got a degree in electrical engineering and computer science, and I have started 2 prior companies in the field of navigation and localization for autonomous systems and robotics. Both of those have done very well. And one of the things that I realized in this journey of building businesses in autonomy and sensors and robotics is that GPS is a really useful, cheap, ubiquitous, open, free technology that could be super useful for robotics. But unfortunately, these GPS satellites, they were launched up in the 80s. There's been actually pretty little modernization of that system, and they're just not precise or reliable enough to actually be used for robotics and autonomy. And that is why I started Geonet. And there is a principle that you can use to make GPS very accurate and very reliable. But prior to Geonet, it had been super, super expensive and really only used by researchers and surveyors. High end of the farming market. It was a very exotic technology that has an acronym called RTK, real-time kinematic. And the principle that real-time kinematic technology works on is basically having a base station, which is pictured here on the left, and then a device that wants to get better accuracy. It could be a drone, could be a cell phone, like Solana mobile phone, for example. We've been setting up corrections for that. And if the base station is nearby, say within 20 kilometers, it sees the same satellites as the phone or the drone, and it's able to correct for all the major error sources. That includes orbit errors, timing errors, space weather errors coming from the ionosphere and the troposphere, and finally, like environmental errors. And you basically do differential signal processing, create a new signal. That new signal, the RTK signal, is what is used by the device, and it can get you to inch accuracy, so actually sub-inch accuracy, 1 centimeter in X, Y, and Z. And that is an incredibly powerful signal for robots and drones to use to navigate the world. The challenge that made this technology so expensive is getting all these base stations up. And so what we did, as Cheyenne just alluded to, is use sort of internet labor markets to build now the world's largest precise positioning network by incentivizing users to set up these base stations. And now, as of today, there are almost 21,000 that have been installed. That makes it about 4 or 5 times larger than any other RTK network on the planet today. So it is by far the largest network with the best coverage, the most modern signals, and the best pricing. So it's a really beautiful, beautiful story of how a token incentivized model has led to real core national critical infrastructure deployment. We cover 150 plus countries, many thousands of cities, 5,000 plus cities. It's really been an amazing journey. And that core contributor network is the first piece in the flywheel. So by building out this infrastructure that would have otherwise cost billions of dollars of capital to build out, we've created a network. That network has now been validated by many organizations, including the USDA, which runs a number of Geonet nodes, and has written and published on the benefit of Geonet to the American farmer. National Resources Canada has also validated the network for survey use in Canada, and numbers of other organizations through free trials have really validated that this works better than anything created before it. We also provide really deep APIs that are more complete than any of the Web 2 companies that have entered into this space for integration of this geospatial spatial intelligence service into devices. And then finally, there's the actual end developers who put this into robots and drones, and the people who already have equipment that supports the RTK signal can use it directly, very low switching costs to use Geonet, and that then creates demand for the network, and the demand then buys back and burns Geode tokens. So it's a complete flywheel loop classic deepen, but it's just worked really well for a number of reasons that we'll talk about today. This is the coverage map of Geonet. So everywhere that you see blue is the Geonet signal is available. So we have very complete, almost perfect coverage throughout all of Europe. North America is well covered except for some of the rural areas that we're working on. We have the largest network in India, the largest network in Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, Middle East, all doing very well. So really the only notable places we don't have coverage, it is illegal to operate Geonet stations, and that's mainland China, which has very mature RTK very good RTK network coverage within mainland China already, and Russia. But we're covering about 80% of the population of the Western world and have built this network in about 2.5 years. And that's just an insane accomplishment given that governments and major Web 2 companies have been trying to build an RTK network for over 20 years. And we've done it with better quality and faster and an order of magnitude more capital efficient. And this is just going to show you kind of what this service looks like in action because it's kind of hard to visualize. So these are a couple of just demonstrations of what the service does. So this is a simple ground robot. The purple line is regular GPS. The blue line is the Geonet signal, just to give you an idea of the accuracy difference. And then that can be used to power things like robotic lawnmowers, which is a growing business. About 1 million robotic lawnmowers will ship this year, many of those tying into Geonet. Drones is something I'm going to talk a lot about in this talk. Drones are incredible. Utility, drone delivery, drone in a box, security drones, even video drones. Gaming experiences where precise location is important, such as Pokemon Go. You can pin things, the digital things, to the physical world very precisely. And then finally, the data and training necessary for full autonomous systems like autonomous vehicles and robots can be pinned to the physical world and collected more efficiently with Geonet. So we've partnered with another protocol called Rover. Geonet's invested in this protocol that's combining Geonet with LiDAR and camera and collecting the data needed to train for spatial AI and for world models. And I'll speak a little bit more about how we tie into that in a second as well. So this is used now by over 130 enterprise customers spanning makers of GPS chips to makers of full robotic systems to deployers of drones to dealers of equipment and even to some Web3 protocols such as the Rover protocol I highlighted earlier, but also WingBits, an upcoming exciting partnership to be announced with Spexy around their drone mapping capabilities, and even 00 for precision timing in that infrastructure there. These are some pictures of the applications. On the left, you see a robotic mower, ADAS systems in your car. So if you have a Tesla with a full self-driving, GNSS corrections are used in that marketplace. Precision agriculture, so any modern tractor from John Deere, Case, AGCO already supports the RTK signal, so it's very, very easy for a customer to plug into the Geonet network. And we have customers in Iowa who have $6 million machines. It's not about the cost. They say Geonet just works better. It just works better than anything they've ever used from John Deere or anyone else. So the ability to build that scaled network that Cheyenne talked about, the scale has been just, nobody can keep up with Geonet because we're deploying and because of the economic engine behind the tokenomics. And this is what it looks like in terms of usage. So the first map I showed was the coverage. This map is actually users. So every dot is a user who's used Geonet in the last 6 months. And you can see that it's very, very global usage. We have now a really good growing community using it in South America. Obviously, the use in the North America and in Europe is really incredible, but India, Brazil, Middle East, all really exciting markets for Geonet, where we're also kind of the first really real network for anyone to use for high precision positioning. That usage turns into revenue. So we have a very, very simple buyback and burn mechanism. So the Geonet is a decentralized organization, and it really doesn't do much besides encourage the protocol adoption, go to shows to show people how to use it. We do a lot of kind of Web 2 marketing. I'll talk a little bit later about the Geonet journal. But it returns 80% of revenue back to token holders through a buyback and burn mechanism. And so the buyback and burn mechanisms means that for every dollar of fiat revenue that the Geonet Foundation receives for using the network, 80 cents of that goes back to buying the token and permanent burning. Geonet had a billion token initial mint, and every day the total number of tokens, the total supply of Geonet decreases, and we're only at the very, very beginning. And why are we only at the very, very beginning? Because of physical AI. So this is a picture from when Jensen Huang introduced this word physical AI that's now become a part of our vernacular as well as embodied AI and so forth. And he painted the picture that physical AI will be actually the biggest instantiation and most complete instantiation of AI to happen. And that will be things like full self-driving and generalized robotics. And it was just 11 months ago that he made this, but I think everyone would recognize now that this is on everyone's mind. I mean, robots are everywhere in social media, and everybody, I think, is recognizing that this stuff is going to happen, maybe much faster than we realized. It's almost every day Elon's talking about how his humanoid robot is going to be the money glitch. And I think there's actually quite a lot of truth to that, and I think it will create actually the largest market in the history of Earth, because it's going to take over physical work, and physical work is still a huge part of what powers the world today. So kind of bringing it back down to a little bit more near-term markets, within that physical AI category, the two markets that are most important to Geonet is autonomous vehicles and drones. And both of these are double-digit billion-dollar markets growing at double-digit rates. They're both, I think, very much super critical to the future of the world. And Geonet is playing a very big role in these, and in fact is playing, as I'll show in a second, we're actually building a whole ecosystem to provide a spatial intelligence platform from end to end for these vehicles. And by end to end, I mean all the way from the reference network through the design of the vehicle to actually the silicon inside these vehicles that will make the American-made drones, American-made autonomous robots cost-effective and win in the marketplace. And to do that, we have to build a whole stack beyond just the RTK network. So the RTK network is sort of the base layer. This protocol that we've partnered with and invested in and share a lot of resources with Rover is out there doing a lot of the spatial AI work, integrating camera, LiDAR, IMU, collecting data to build models for what's called sort of spatial AI or world models. And what that means in simple terms is if I give you an image, I can kind of give you an idea of location. So if the satellites are blocked, I can still do positioning, such as in an indoor environment. It also means I can understand and perceive the world around me by understanding what is a door, what is a turn signal, all that type of stuff. So Rover's doing that part. When you start adding all these sensors into a vehicle, it gets very compute intensive. And while that might be something that sounds affordable for a car, actually cars work on a very small budget. Drones work on an even smaller budget. So the cost and power efficiency of compute is super critical. So there's another business, Hyfix, which Multicoin is also an investor in. This is a pure Web 2 business. And Hyfix is actually building customized silicon for small robots and drones. Craft Ventures, David Sachs's firm, led the investment in the Hyfix Series Seed. It's about to tape out its first chip, and I will talk a little bit more about that chip here in a second, but it is really going to bring back the ability for us to compete with China in the field of robots and drones, especially small or lower cost devices. Finally, on top of that silicon, you have things like operating systems for robots, and the two I wanted to highlight that Geonet plugs into, one is ROS, which is Robot Operating System, and this is the dominant platform for autonomous land vehicles. So if you're building a robotic mower or a security robot or a delivery vehicle, you're going to use Robot Operating System. If you're building a drone, the dominant platform is ArduPilot. We love ArduPilot. And with ArduPilot, it's a very, very efficient, so you can make these things very inexpensive. And our operating system services directly integrate into ArduPilot. So this is a little bit about why you need a chip. I can't overemphasize the importance of silicon and bringing back silicon. So if you are a drone maker today, and there really aren't any great American drone makers. Drones are truly dominated by the Chinese today, which is a credit to them and all the investment and hard tech that they've done over the last 20 years. But if you want to make a drone in the United States today and you go out and you use components that the government feels are safe, there's a so-called blue list electronics, you will be at over $1,000 bill of materials cost to do that. And by integrating into a single chip, you can save 95% of that cost. And this is actually what our chip looks like. We'll be getting them back in February, hopefully starting to ship samples in March. This is HiFix, business supporting the Geonet ecosystem from the hardware side. And it integrates the Geonet network. It is the primary way that chip works is to get positioning and localization from Geonet, but it can also control the motors. It has 2 radios. It has camera processing for image, what's called visual inertial odometry. So it has all the hooks to build a drone on a single tiny chip. And this strategy is informed not by, oh, this is a great idea, let's go build a chip. But if you take a DJI Mini 4 apart, this is the world's most popular drone. And this drone has all the capabilities. It's a really amazing piece of hardware. Buy one while you can, because in December, the FCC is going to start a multi-year process of banning all Chinese drones in North America, in the United States. But if you take it apart, you'll find 2 pieces of custom silicon developed by DJI. And that's how they've been able to bring all this processing, all this compute, all this positioning capability into a device you can buy on Amazon for $299. And we are replicating that strategy directly. And I think that ties into the last kind of point I wanted to make, that this is an important market, not only economically for us, but also physical AI does tie directly back to national security. And I think it's pretty obvious why when you think about it. But just a couple of things that just kind of put in your head. In 1 year, all American drone companies put together, their total production is far less than 1 day of production in China. They estimate that the DJI alone can produce 30 to 40 million drones per year. And so it's a staggering, we're really quite far behind, and we've got to catch up. And another one I wanted to put up that's just kind of fun is this is UBTech's humanoid robot. There was a big stink on X in the last couple of days as one of the CEOs of an American humanoid company sort of said, hey, it's CGI, and then UBTech. And anyone who's been to China knows they're building humanoids like crazy. I mean, they are all in on these things. They're everywhere. They have them in their movies. They have lots of them. Believe me, they can build humanoid robots at scale, no problem. So it's kind of funny. I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding in the West of just what a gap it is that we have to fill. And what the West has to really make and catch up in this physical AI market is 2 pieces that we need to really focus on. And one is what we've been talking about all day here today, which is Web3. It's financial innovation. And so it's so incredible to be part here in a time when the administration is looking forward to bring financial innovation, because financial innovation is a huge edge that we have that China doesn't have to really help us catch up. Is to be able to invest in our entrepreneurs to make really innovative businesses like Geonet succeed and thrive. And then the second critical piece, I think, is reshoring semiconductor technology. Semiconductors are really the root of electronic devices. This has got to be built on shore. It's crazy to say, but this chip that HiFix is doing will actually be the only commercial GPS chip produced onshore. It's staggering. We invented GPS. And there was not a single supplier onshore of GPS technology. And there was really not even, the only company that actually has GPS IP anymore in the United States is Qualcomm, and it's part of their overall mobile chipset. If you want a GPS chip, a standalone GPS, there are a couple in Europe. U-Box, one of Geonet's customers, Septentrio, one of Geonet's partners. And there are a bunch in China, one in Taiwan, but there's nothing onshore. That should really wake people up. I mean, this is something that's urgent, it's timely, and Web3 helps really accelerate this, and we're just super thrilled to be part of the Multicoin family here and be able to leverage the capital and the trust that you have in us to go build this business and get us caught and let the United States win in physical AI. Thank you.